Hey guys! For those of you who haven't heard, Alex O'Connor, known as CosmicSkeptic on YouTube, just recently made a community post about why he's, wait for it, no longer vegan. In all sincerity, this came as an actual surprise to us, given that Alex has publicly spoken at length about the injustice of confining and killing animals for needless products like meat, dairy, eggs. He's even gone so far as to call what humans do to animals a moral emergency because of how prevalent this cruelty is.
There's a reason it's so explosive and why so many people are hesitant to talk about it, and that's because it's what I would characterize as a moral emergency. Not only that, but I think it's the greatest moral emergency that we're currently facing, the issue of animal exploitation.
And we agree. Just think of it. Is there any other form of cruelty and violence that is not only so widely accepted, but so intensely encouraged?
The reason it's an emergency is because, yes, there are many things going wrong in the world right now. Human trafficking, to take one example. But go out onto the street and ask 100 people what they think about the issue of human trafficking. How many of them would tell you that it's not a moral abomination, and how many of them would even try to justify it to you? I submit that you get 0 people doing that, but go and ask some people on the street what they think of the exploitation of non-human animals, and you won't get the same kind of consensus.
Now, usually these no longer vegan videos or posts, they follow a very basic formula, but in the history of our channel, it has almost exclusively been fitness and lifestyle creators who have done this. You know, your John Venuses, your Raw Alignments, your Ravanas,
Bonnie Rebecca's of the world.
Yeah, they are the ones who come out as no longer vegan when in fact, arguably, they never were vegan, because veganism, as you guys know, is an ethical position on animal rights. Alex is different. He knows the ethics. He advocated for the end of animal exploitation, and he spoke brilliantly about why our non-human fellow earthlings deserve moral consideration, quote, whether we like it or not.
The crux of the point that I want to convince you of today, or help to elucidate, perhaps if you already believe, is that non-human animals are members of our moral community and deserve to be treated as such, whether we like it or not.
Now, we did see Joey's response to Alex, and he had some insider info that we do not have. Apparently, Alex reached out to Joey asking for help because he was having trouble finding plant-based foods in France, even though there were plenty of options in his area, and from our experience in Europe, plant-based foods are readily available at grocery stores, and they're even more normalized there than they are here in the United States.
Also, Joey said Alex may have fallen down a welfarist rabbit hole of sorts, focusing on animal suffering rather than animal rights. Focusing on rights is important, as one could painlessly kill a human, and the human wouldn't suffer, but it's still wrong. It's a violation of that sentient individual's rights. That aside, let's take a look at his post, and we'll give you our thoughts on it. For quite some time, I have been reevaluating my ethical position on eating animals, which is something people have also noticed. But what you will not know is that I had also been struggling privately to maintain a healthy plant-based diet. So he sets the table with the fact that he's reevaluating his position on the ethics of eating animals, but then also throws in there the absolute GOAT of the no longer vegan excuse leaderboard. The oh-so-nebulous health issues.
It's interesting because if you had reevaluated your position on animal rights, then health would be of no concern, because you simply now believe that eating animals is morally okay or acceptable. And if your health issues require eating animals, then your ethical position is irrelevant. Unless, of course, you were on record saying something like,
even if there were no health benefits, so long as it is healthy, which I assure you it is, there is already a moral imperative to go vegan.
I wanted to let you know that because of this, I have for some time now been consuming animal products again, primarily but not exclusively seafood, and experimenting with how best to integrate them into my life.
He specifies here that he's been primarily but not exclusively eating sea animals, though he calls them seafood. The Alex O'Connor from a year or two ago may very well have not used this speciesist term. They're not food, they're animals. It's also strange that he chooses to support an industry responsible for trillions of lives taken every single year, using practices like trawling, where giant nets are dragged through the sea, killing not only the animals people want to eat, but also millions of others, like dolphins, whales, sea turtles, and destroying our oceans, our coral reefs, polluting our oceans. 46% of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is composed of discarded fishing nets.
I am interested in philosophy and never enjoy sharing personal information about myself, but I can obviously see why this particular update is both necessary and relevant. It's not my intention to go into too much detail here, as I think that will require more space and perhaps a video, but rather to let you know with more details to follow later. Again, the lack of detail, the keeping things personal, the unwillingness to get specific, it's just all the same song we've heard time and time again. With these no longer vegan posts. It's always vague. We recognize that we can never literally live someone else's subjective experience, but at this point, whenever we hear these vague health excuses, quite frankly, we just don't believe them anymore. We've heard wolf cried too many times. We trust data and the preponderance of evidence, just as Alex does. He is a skeptic after all, and he doesn't just believe something because someone told him so.
And when we look at the countless nutrition organizations, almost none of which are vegan organizations, the WHO, the FAO, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the British National Health Service, the British Dietetic Association, the Dietitians of Canada, the Dietitians Association of Australia, they all say that humans can not only be healthy, but actually thrive on well-planned plant-based diets. So who are we going to believe? The world's leading nutrition professionals or Alex O'Connor? This isn't to insult him or to call him a liar. It's merely to point out the reality that humans can and do live healthy lives as vegans. And if Alex was having health issues, those need to be addressed by a health professional who is knowledgeable in plant-based nutrition. And given Alex's clout, I mean, he'd be someone who would have a multitude of resources and professional connections, so that it's simply not just chalked up to needing the corpses of dead fish in your body.
My opposition to factory farming remains unchanged, as do my views regarding the need to view non-human animals as morally worthy beings, whose interests ethically matter. Except, clearly, that's untrue. If you're now eating factory-farmed animal products, as he did say, he's not exclusively eating sea animals, and more than 99% of animal products that are available are factory-farmed. But even if Alex is only eating sea animals that he himself fishes out of the ocean, he's not, but even if he was, the mere act of needlessly eating animals denies them their moral worth.
However, I am no longer convinced of the appropriateness of an individual-focused boycott in responding to these problems, and am increasingly doubtful of the practicability of maintaining a healthy plant-based diet in the long term. Again, for reasons I hope to go into more detail at a later date. Let's break down that phrase. No longer convinced of the appropriateness of an individual-focused boycott in responding to these problems. If not individual-focused, then what? Group-focused? What is a group but a collection of individuals? If individuals don't respond to this problem, how can we expect groups and organizations to do so? How do we help the world if not through individual action?
At the very least, even if I am way off base and totally mistaken in my assessments, I do not wish to see people consuming a diet on my account if I have been unable to keep up that diet myself. Even if I am making a mistake, in other words, I want it to be known that I have made it. The reason this is confusing is that a vegan diet doesn't exist. Or rather, there are thousands of foods to choose from as a vegan, so there is not one defined vegan diet. So What diet has Alex promoted? What foods? What macros? What vitamins and minerals? How much exercise and sleep?
I imagine that the responses to this will vary, and I understand why this might come as a huge disappointment to some of my followers. I am truly sorry for having so rigorously, and at times perhaps too unforgivingly, advocated for a behavior change that I myself have not been able to maintain. Interesting word choice of Alex's here. Followers. What do followers do? They follow. People who look up to Alex will most likely do as Alex does. We have said it countless times on this channel. When you have great power, like an enormous audience of over 500,000 subscribers, you also have a great responsibility to do the right thing. At least he is acknowledging that his actions will have consequences, but talk about a focus on individuals. He's actively discouraging individuals from following his actions, knowing full well that he does have influence over a large group, and his actions will have an effect larger than that of an individual.
I've changed my mind and behaviors publicly on a great many things before, but this feels the most difficult to address by a large margin. I did not want to speak about it until I was sure that I couldn't make it practically work. Some of you will not care, some may understand, some will be angry, and others upset. Naturally, this is a quite embarrassing and humbling moment, so I also understand and accept that there will be some I told you so's. You won't be hearing I told you so's from vegans, Alex. You will only be hearing I told you so's from non-vegans who were hoping that you would go back on your ethics. They were uncomfortable when you made the change because it made them reflect on their own actions. And now they can revel in the fact that you will be continuing to exploit innocent animals.
Whatever the case, please know that this experience has inspired a deep self-reflection and that I will be duly careful in future regarding the forthrightness of my convictions. I am especially sorry to those who are now vegan activists on account of my content, and hope that they know I will still effort with you to bring about the end of factory farming. To them and to everyone else, I appreciate your viewership and engagement as always, as well as your feedback and criticisms. Interesting. He doesn't say he wants to end animal exploitation. He wants to work with vegans to end factory farming. We're genuinely curious. Why does Alex oppose factory farming? Do factory farmed animals have more moral worth than non-factory farmed animals? Does a deer shot by a hunter not value their life as much as a factory farmed chicken? This division, again, seems like someone who's concerned with animal suffering and not animal rights.
Yeah, and if Alex's journey is similar to that of so many other no longer vegans, this tiny window he's given himself of non-factory farmed products and seafood could very easily blow out into a giant doorway which includes factory farmed animals. As we have said on this channel, factory farming was the solution to providing billions of people with animal products at a price point they can afford. Ending animal exploitation will end factory farming.
So that's the end of his post. It's very disappointing and confusing at times. Again, we're not in Alex's head, but it just feels like the only excuse we ever hear about why someone is not or no longer vegan. And in the end, as always, what it really boils down to is that Alex just doesn't want to be.
It's not a difficult decision to make. I made that decision for myself the better part of a year ago, and I will never again allow my culinary convenience to balance upon the corpses of innocent members of our moral community whose eyes I never had to look into, but saw more pain than I will ever even be capable of imagining, so that I could eat a pizza topping.
So guys, what are your thoughts on Alex's post? If you haven't read it in full, you can read it. The link is down below. What do you think of his rationale, his reasoning? Do you agree with it? Do you agree with us? Let us know.
And a deep thank you to all of our Patreon patrons. If you enjoy our content, if you feel like we give value to your life, please consider becoming a patron. Our link is in the description below.
You can also check out all of our swag on our Etsy store. That is linked below too. And until the next video, guys.
See you soon.